I thought I was home. At least, that's what it was supposed to be. We hadn't even said a prayer yet. The turkey was untouched. Steam was rising from the cornbread stuffing in the fancy glass dish my mom only dusted off once a year. And there I was, still standing, still smiling like a fool, pie in hand, when my dad dropped the bomb. Return the $60,000, Ellie, or don't bother showing your face here again. At first, I thought I'd misheard him, maybe he was trying to be funny in the worst way possible. Dad wasn't the type for drama, and Thanksgiving at our house had always been peaceful, until that night. But nobody laughed. Carly sat across from me with her hands folded tight like she was at a memorial service. Joel stared down at the table like it had answers. Even my mom, sweet, quiet mom, couldn't bring herself to look at me. I didn't sit. I couldn't. That pie felt like a boulder in my hands. I stared at it, numb, like somehow it held the explanation for what was unraveling in front of me. Excuse me? I managed. Dad's jaw clenched. Don't drag this out, Ellie. Just do the right thing. What are you even accusing me of? I asked, though my voice was barely there. That's when Carly looked up. Her eyes were rimmed with red, mascara clinging to the edges like she'd been crying all day, but her voice? Cold and sharp. Mom's savings account. 60 grand disappeared last month. Right after you helped her set up the online access. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. It was true, I had helped her. She'd been nervous about switching to digital banking. Said she didn't trust technology, always mumbled something about the internet stealing things. So I sat beside her one Sunday, walked her through the steps, picked secure passwords, set up the app. She jotted it all down in a little notepad we kept by the sink. That was barely a month ago. Now they were telling me that was when I became a thief. You seriously believe I took her money? I whispered. Joel's finally spoke, stiff and uncomfortable like the words were splinters in his throat. We didn't want to believe it. But the bank traced the withdrawals. All online. No one else had access. No one except me. I looked at my mom. She didn't say a word. Didn't shake her head. Didn't nod either. Just dabbed at her mouth with a napkin like she might get sick right there at the table. And that's when it hit me, the pie, the drive, the tradition, it didn't mean anything. To them, I wasn't family anymore. I was a criminal. I walked to the counter and set the pie down as gently as I could. The tin clicked against the granite, that tiny sound louder than anything else in the room. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. Still didn't say a word. You've got until Sunday, Dad said quietly behind me. Then we take this to court. I didn't cry in the car. Didn't scream, didn't punch the steering wheel like some kind of dramatic movie scene. I just drove. My coat was still half-buttoned. The pie was still sitting there, untouched. Left behind like me, the streets were still, lined with porch lights and paper leaves taped to windows. It was Thanksgiving night, and the whole town smelled like cinnamon, cloves, and comfort. All of it except me. I pulled into the parking lot of a small roadside motel I'd passed a dozen times before but never once stopped at. The clerk didn't ask why I needed a room on a holiday. And honestly, I was grateful for that tiny kindness. The room smelled like old curtains and burnt popcorn. I kicked off my boots and sat at the edge of the bed, my hands trembling. 35 years old. A lead financial investigator, trusted with corporate audits worth millions. And my own parents thought I'd stolen from them. The worst part? Deep down, I wasn't even shocked. Not completely. There had been signs, little things. Like the way Carly would sigh when Mom went on about my promotions. There was that time Dad looked at me and said, "Don't you think it's about time you settled down? Maybe try actually living a little?" Like my job wasn't part of real life. Like my career didn't count. And then there was last Christmas. I offered to help cover the cost of replacing the roof on the house, and Joel mumbled something snide about me buying affection. I'd brushed it off. I thought they were teasing. I honestly believed we were still familyed. I laid back on the scratchy comforter in that motel room, eyes locked on the ceiling tiles, replaying every second of the afternoon Mom had asked me to help her with her bank account. Every click, every login attempt, every password reset. Had I missed something? Could someone else have found the notebook we stashed in that kitchen drawer? It wasn't locked. Anyone could have pulled it open. Carly still bounced in and out of the house depending on how chaotic her life was at the time. Joel had a spare key. Sure, I was the one who'd shown Mom how to use the app, but that didn't mean I was the only one who knew how it worked. Still, they bought the story. Believed I'd waited until she was vulnerable just to clean out her account. $60,000. Like I even needed it. Like I'd ever do that to her. My phone buzzed. A text from Carly. We didn't want it to end like this, but you made it impossible to trust you. No, happy Thanksgiving. No, are you okay? Just that, like I was the one who tore things apart. Like I owed them an apology. I flipped the phone screen down on the side table. At work, I spend my days chasing down shell corporations, tracing fake vendors, unraveling forged payment trails. I know what financial manipulation looks like, and more importantly, I know how easy it is to make someone else look guilty. And right now, someone had painted a target on my back. They wanted a fall girl, and they picked me. I stared up at the ceiling until the overhead light blurred. If they wanted to treat me like the family fraudster, fine. Maybe it was time I started investigating like one. The next morning, I woke up early, no alarm needed. Habit. Years of tracking corporate fraud taught me one golden rule: money doesn't vanish, it gets redirected. The key is figuring out who had something to gain. I poured myself a cup of the bitter, burnt coffee from the motel lobby and flipped open my laptop on the desk by the window. My firm had recently opened an inquiry into a disturbing pattern of elder financial exploitation, mostly older clients with small retirement funds that mysteriously vanished in 3 large withdrawals. Each just under the federal reporting limit. Different banks, but one popped up more than the rest: Norcrest Credit Union. My mother's bank. I hadn't told my family I was part of the internal investigation. Technically, it was sensitive material, but I had clearance, and I knew exactly who to ask. I shot a quick message to Theo, our compliance officer on the case, just a name, a date range, and the local branch's zip code. An hour later, I had the file sitting in my inbox. Full transaction log. Timestamps. Teller notes: there were 3 separate cash withdrawals from Mom's account, each spaced 5 days apart. The first for $22,000. The second, $18,000. The last, another $20,000. All done in person. Not a single one processed through the app or website. That was the first break in their whole story. They swore I'd used the online banking system, said I was the only one with access. But if the money was withdrawn in person? It couldn't have been me. I clicked the link Theo had included, security footage from the branch. It was grainy, low-res, but clear enough. The first video loaded. Norcrest Credit Union. October 14th, 1:07 p.m. A young woman stepped up to the counter, glancing around nervously like she thought someone might be watching. She had a messy blonde ponytail, a gray zip-up hoodie, oversized sunglasses. My first instinct? Someone hired a stand-in. A fake ID, a stranger pretending to be my mom. But then she leaned in closer to speak to the teller, and pulled her mask down. It was Carly. Even with the pixelated screen, I recognized her instantly. I'd watched that face blow out birthday candles, sob after bad breakups, roll her eyes at every family gathering. She was twitchy, tapping her nails against the counter. Then she handed over what looked like Mom's driver's license and scribbled a signature on a slip of paper. Her handwriting hadn't changed one bit since high school. Same rounded letters, same dramatic tail on her Y's. I leaned back in the stiff motel chair while the overhead light blinked with a slow, tired flicker. They hadn't just taken the money, they'd planned this. Timed it. Waited until I helped Mom set up digital banking, then used that as their excuse to pin it all on me. I loaded the second video. October 15th, same Norcrest branch. This time it was Joel. No costume. No anxious energy. He strolled up like he owned the place, laughed with the teller, signed off like the account was his. Confident. Comfortable. Then came the third video. Carly again. Same hoodie, different shades. That smugness made my stomach twist. But something still didn't add up. How had they even gotten their hands on Mom's ID and her banking details? And then it clicked. 2 weeks before I walked Mom through the banking app, she'd gone in for some outpatient testing at Red River Regional. Nothing serious, just scans and a sleep study. Carly had volunteered to spend the night with her. And Mom, being Mom, had brought her whole purse. Her checkbook, her driver's license, the bank statements I'd printed for her. Everything they'd need. That's where it started. But that's not where it stopped. I pulled up the metadata from when her online account was first accessed. The first login after I left town hadn't come from Mom's phone, it came from a tablet tied to the home's Wi-Fi. Same IP address Carly used to stream her endless murder documentaries. And that one-time password? It hadn't gone to the email I set up. It went to a different recovery address. One I didn't recognize. I traced it. The backup phone number on that email account? Joel's. This wasn't some lazy, last-minute mistake. This was bold. They counted on no one looking deeper. Counted on me being the easy target, the successful one who had something to hide. Counted on the fact that the rest of them would back each other up. I shut the laptop. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't a bad judgment call or some desperate grab for cash. It was fraud. And they'd used my relationship with Mom, my love for her, as the perfect distraction. I zipped my laptop into its case, picked up my phone, not to call the police. Not yet. I called my office. Theo answered on the second ring. I asked him for one specific thing, copies of the teller signatures from each transaction. I'd need them to line up against Carly and Joel's scrawls. Then I unzipped my suitcase and pulled out the slim, black presentation folder I used in depositions. It was my sharpest weapon, the kind of tool you carry when you're not guessing, you're proving. If they wanted to cast me as the villain in this family, I'd show them what happens when the villain comes armed with receipts. I didn't call ahead. I drove back that Monday afternoon, just as the light outside hit that rich, golden tone it always did between fall and Christmas. It used to make everything look like home. Not anymore. The driveway was full. Joel's dark SUV. Carly's silver hatchback. Mom's faded burgundy sedan. No guests, just the inner circle. I parked out on the street, cut the engine, and just sat there for a second. Hands resting on the folder in my lap. The one packed with time-stamped proof, grainy photos, and signatures they assumed would stay buried. Then I opened the door, walked up the steps, and let myself in. The house smelled like rosemary and warm broth. All the kitchen lights were on. I could hear forks clinking against plates, low voices chatting about nothing, someone laughing, probably at something Joel said. That laugh didn't belong to me anymore. I found them all gathered in the kitchen. Carly was perched on the counter like she always did when she was being casual and cocky, swinging her legs, holding a coffee mug like it was some kind of prop. Joel leaned against the fridge, arms folded, stone-faced. Mom stood at the sink, drying dishes slowly. Dad stirred something on the stove, like we were just picking up where Thanksgiving left off. They all looked up when I walked in, silenced. I walked past them, calm and steady, and set the folder down right in the middle of the island. The same wooden surface where we used to decorate cookies and wrap birthday presents. Then I opened it. You believed I stole from Mom, I said, my voice low but firm. Now let me show you what really happened. The air shifted. That strange stillness right before a thunderstorm. I pulled out the first still image, security footage frozen in time. Carly at the counter, oversized sunglasses, signing a withdrawal slip. October 10th, 22 grand. In person. Not online. Not me. Nobody said a word. Not even Carly. The second photo showed Joel in a navy sweater, grinning like he'd just told a joke, handing over a check. October 15th, 15 grand. I could hear my voice start to shake, not with anger, but with control. These weren't strangers. These were the people I used to build forts with. People who knew what I looked like when I cried as a kid. Carly's fingers tightened around her coffee mug. She opened her mouth like she might say something, but nothing came out. I laid down the signed teller slips. Same branch. Same handwriting, I said quietly. I matched them to your note, Carly, the one you left on Mom's fridge last week. A long pause followed, then she finally spoke. Her voice was thinner than I remembered, almost reedy. You went through our stuff? I tilted my head slightly. Calm. Controlled. You went through Mom's. Mom reached for one of the documents. Her eyes scanned the print, but her hands were shaking. But the bank said it was online, she murmured, almost like she was asking me to undo it. They misunderstood you, I replied. The withdrawal itself wasn't online. That part happened in person. The online access came later, from a tablet connected to your Wi-Fi. The account was linked to a recovery email attached to Joel's phone number. The silence that followed was thick. Like fresh snow blanketing everything. Dad stopped stirring. Carly stared off toward the back window. Joel looked down at the floor like maybe the truth would be different if he just didn't look up. You let me think my daughter stole from me, Mom whispered. She wasn't looking at anyone. Not even me. You told me not to come home. And you never asked if I did it, I said, my voice barely audible. That was the part that hurt. Not the accusation. Not the veiled threats about legal action. The fact that no one even asked. Carly finally looked at me. But it wasn't remorse on her face, it was resentment. You always get everything, she said. The job. The praise. The damn respect. I just wanted things to feel fair for once. I stared at her for a long time. She looked older. Worn out. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. You didn't make it fair, I said. You torched it. Joel cleared his throat. His tone was flat, emotionless. She'll be fine, Mom. Mara makes more than all of us put together. It wasn't personal. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself against the cold crawling up the back of my neck. It's always personal when it's family. I watched Mom lower herself into a chair at the table. The folder was still wide open in front of her. She just sat there with her hands in her lap, palms turned up like she didn't recognize them. Dad was the one to break the silence. Mara, what are you going to do? I looked him in the eye, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like the kid in the room. I'm not filing charges, I said. But I've already sent the full file to the family attorney. What happens next is up to them. He gave a tired nod, slower than usual. He looked older than I remembered. I zipped up the folder. My hands moved on instinct, years of boardrooms and courtroom prep. But this time, it felt like I was closing something for good. You told me not to come back unless I returned the money, I said as I stood. I didn't take the money, I added, looking at each of them in turn. But I brought the truth. I let the words settle, then I turned to leave. Mara, Mom's voice cracked behind me. I paused in the doorway, not turning around. Thanksgiving's over, I said. You all made sure of that. I left the house without another word. I didn't take the folder. I didn't take the half-eaten pie on the counter. Just my keys. And whatever tiny part of me had still hoped they'd choose me. I didn't drive off right away. I sat there in my car for a while, parked along the curb, watching the kitchen window glow in the dark. No one came out. No one called my name. Carly didn't laugh. Joel didn't open the front door and run after me. Nobody followed. And that silence, that stillness, that told me everything I hadn't wanted to believe. Back in Boston, the city felt sharper. Quieter. I went back to work like nothing had happened. But I wasn't the same. I stopped calling on Sunday nights. Left the family group chat unread. Let the voicemail icon sit there blinking for 3 full days before I finally listened to it. It was Mom. Mara, we were wrong. I know that now. Her voice cracked again. I didn't want to believe it. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know. The house feels empty. She hung up before she hit the 1-minute Joel's. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Real paper. Real ink. Inside was a photo. Me, Carly, and Joel. Ages 6, 8, and 10. Sitting on the back porch in makeshift Halloween costumes. I was the scarecrow. Carly had aluminum foil wings taped to her arms. Joel's was just dripping in red paint. On the back of the photo was one handwritten sentence: "We didn't realize how much we'd miss you until you weren't here anymore." No name. No return address. Neither Carly nor Joel's ever reached out. But a cousin who still lived in town told me they'd both moved out of the house not long after. Mom cut ties with them, said she needed time to think. I didn't push for details. I didn't offer to come back. Instead, I built something new. I started running a weekend course at the local community college, Financial Safety for Seniors. It wasn't flashy, but it gave me a sense of control. One Saturday, after class, a woman in her 70s came up and said, "I wish I had a daughter like you." I gave her a small smile. Didn't say what crossed my mind. So did mine. December passed without a tree. No call. No package with the usual ornaments we used to swap every year. There's a type of grief that no one talks about, the kind that doesn't come from death, but from realizing the people you loved most chose to believe in some made-up version of you instead of the real thing. And once they made that decision, they couldn't unmake it. I still have the folder. Not in my office, not out in the open, just tucked in a drawer near the bookshelf, under old tax forms and a worn copy of the mortgage papers. I haven't opened it since that night. There's no reason to. The facts haven't changed. And neither have I.